Welcome to Power of X-Men, the podcast where we review every single issue of the revolutionary, groundbreaking, punk, epic, mutant masterpiece known as Morrison's New X-Men. I am the Uncanny Dayspring.
And I am the New Flinkman.
And praise White Phoenix, we are back on the Morrison train with today's episode.
We took a few detours there. I mean, they were Morrison adjacent, but we did sort of go a little bit longer in between talking actual Morrison issues than maybe we planned to. So we'll try and focus for everyone now.
Okay, but our detours were Poptopia, and then the Iceman 2001 series, and we had Hammy on that episode, and then we spoke to Joe Casey. I mean, come on.
I mean, these are good detours. I'm not complaining. I understand our reasons for taking these detours, but for people reading along with us, they're probably like, when the fuck are these queens gonna get to the annual?
The problem is when you are covering material with someone you like, and yes, I'm saying how much I love and like you on camera.
Wow.
I know, like 20 years of friendship, but it's like you just want to talk about every excruciating detail just so you can pull focus in for the familia at home.
Yeah, and I think you and I really started talking comics with the, Reload era? Is that what Astonishing and Chuck Austen and all of that was? Whatever, all of that. Mm-hmm. Claremont back on Uncanny. So this is like and we've talked that and everything since that to death. Not that we couldn't do it again, but it is well covered in our AIM chat logs. But we've never really gone deep on this. But Morrison, yes, but we've never gone deep on Joe Casey, Poptopia. I'd never read the Iceman series, so it's easy to go on these detours with you when we've never discussed these things literally ever.
Yeah, and I authentically want to know your opinion on this era because it was so defining for us. Because again, I love to stress this point over and over again because history is getting forgotten. People left the X-books right after Onslaught. And Zero Tolerance to 12, all those stories, of course we knew about them, but we didn't really come back to the X-books until Morrison. And one of the things that is revealed in our Joe Casey interview, which will be the next episode we drop, was that even Morrison wasn't anticipating this huge reaction, and they were even a little uncomfortable with it, Joe Casey was telling us.
I mean, I can't imagine what it must have been like to have to be the first wave of creators to ever face fandom on the internet in the way that things were, at the turn of the century, and now, of course, with things like, I'm going to say Blue Sky because we don't talk about the other one, where it's normal for you to have an outlet to reach your favorite creators. But back then, this was the Wild West, and I'm sure neither Casey nor Morrison could have anticipated just the intense reactions all across the spectrum to their work. So yeah, I imagine it was very easy to be blown away by the responses.
AOL keyword Marvel. Why were they not on there?
I mean, were they? Maybe they did do an AOL chat once.
Yeah,
and we just missed it. Do you remember those? Did you ever do those AOL chats with celebrities? And
of course I did.
Definitely.
They had one for Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan when she joined Charm. Oh.
Nice.
Okay, wait, can I tell you something?
And now, of course, we've met the Queen herself. Yes, always.
I'm going to tell you something, and this is between us and the rest of the people listening. I used to go on the Nick at Night chat room and pretend to be Rhoda. Valerie Harper.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Well, props for that. That, what that is? That is proof that you knew at a young age that you were gay, because only the gays are obsessed with Rhoda. All the girlies want to be Mary, but all the gays are like, yes, Rhoda, scarves, love you, bitch.
Rhoda and her scarf, and it's part of our Nick at Night history. I loved it. I loved Valerie Harper so much. But yeah, I mean, the Joe Casey interview, quite quite amazing. We'll have him back on when Weapon X-Men is done and do some follow-up work. I loved him, and of course he had his sunglasses on the entire time, and that was just incredible.
I actually read Weapon. I don't read new X books, but I did actually read Weapon X-Men #1, and it is so much fun. It's a very straightforward, fun X-Men book, which I feel is something that the franchise needs on the stands right now. And yeah, he was a literal rock star with his sunglasses on. It was a great interview. I look forward to everybody hearing it and giving us your thoughts at AOL keyword Power of X-Men.
Okay, well, in news today, X-Force issue 9, I believe, came out, and it's chapter 6 of the X-Manhunt crossover. And are you reading the X-Manhunt crossover?
No, no. To put it mildly, I tried all of the new From the Ashes books, and most of them that aren't miniseries, I didn't get past issue 2 on. So no. And I'm actually surprised that X-Manhunt is already 6 chapters in, and I haven't heard almost anything about it. But that's presumably something happened today.
Well, that's because nothing has really happened in this crossover, and it was billed as one of the milestone crossovers. I reacted to the trailer on YouTube's, and I was like, wow, I'm actually going to tune in on this. And it's been a little bit of a lackluster. I will say it has made me a fan of Mark Russell's X Factor. I definitely judged that title too quickly, and I proudly eat my words because I think what I've read and caught up on so far, plus this issue of X-Manhunt, it's funny. And it's engaging, and it's an entertaining X book.
That one I will probably eventually read. I mean, it has Havoc in it. I know that it's ending with issue 10. I've read probably 4 issues, so that'll be a real simple one for me to finish. But so far as keeping up with things weekly, no, and certainly crossovers weekly, no. I'm not doing any of that. But I'm curious. What happened today?
Lilandra was resurrected. They had a spare Krakoan egg hiding out on Utopia. Xavier got it thanks to Sage, and he was able to bring back Lilandra, Empress of the Shi'ar.
Great. Cool. Sure. I mean, listen, I have nothing against Lilandra. She is a great character. She's featured in some great stories, but raising her, using the last Krakoan egg to raise her from the dead so Xavier can have his baby mama back. That isn't exactly, and that's probably oversimplifying a lot, but and I don't want to reduce her to Xavier's baby mama either. She is the deposed Majestrix of the Shi'ar Empire. She's great. But is she going to be this big, great, fabulous Empress, or is she going to be a source of man pain for Xavier?
I kind of thought it was going to be her. I was hoping that maybe it was going to be Hope Summers. Yes. And that was sort of like the driving force here. But I have to tell you, in terms of X-Manhunt so far, we have one more chapter left. It's called X-Manhunt Omega. And nothing has happened in this crossover. I feel so ripped off. I just want to be like, come on, Marvel. What is going on with you?
I mean, I think we know what's going on. They just are throwing anything and everything at the wall, using new #1s as band-aids for a temporary fix for all of these problems. I'm not looking at sales data these days, because if I'm not reading the comics, I don't care. But I can't imagine that this is any great numbers sales success. And if people like me are falling off, I wonder how many others are out there that have also fell off.
Too many have fallen off, and I'm not reading on the weeklies. I just did this because I publicly proclaimed I was going to do it, and I was like, you know what? I want a good cross. No. I want a good cross. I want to have my lunch and a good comic book to read. That's it.
You want your $5 footlong and your astonishing X-Men fix. I get it.
That's all I want to do. And so I've come to it with an open heart. I will say I think they are planting seeds for Krakoa to return, because that is an underlying thing in this crossover. The last Krakoan seed also appeared here, and then we have a Krakoan egg, and Emma's musing about the good old days on Krakoa. But I'm just like for this, like so early on, you haven't even been a year into this
Right.
reboot. You already are looking back to Krakoa. I don't know.
Did Emma literally call it the good old days?
No, it was,
Okay, good. Because
no,
that, number one, out of character for Emma. And number two, girl, it was like 5 minutes ago.
okay, so also like Emma in this issue of Exceptional X-Men, when they're like Xavier is free, Emma goes, "What?" Like that, like her hands to her face, and she's like in disbelief. And
Oh
I'm like, oh no. I'm like, Emma would never.
no.
That
No,
is
she would have
no. Emma would
some witty
never.
line. No,
No.
no, no,
She'd be like,
no.
"Oh, great! I had a manicure at 3." You know what I mean? Like that is something she would say. I don't know. I'm not a fucking writer. Like for the X books, I just couldn't believe when I saw that. I literally almost put down the issue. I was like, I'm just not going to review it after this because it was such an again. It's these minor details that tell you where where they are at with their managing of the characters. Whether it's a writer, whether it's editorial, whether it's Marvel at large. I don't get it.
Yeah, and Eve Ewing is writing that book, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like no disrespect to Eve Ewing, I have enjoyed some of her work in the past, but it doesn't sound, it didn't feel the issues that I read, and it doesn't sound like from what you're telling me, she has a good handle on the character of Emma Frost. And unfortunately,
Not
you
many
don't have a
people
good
do.
handle on Emma, and she's part of your cast. I'm not gonna like your book.
Yeah, and in fairness, not many writers have a good handle on
No.
Emma. Emma's one of those characters that you just, if I was the editor, you got to be judicious with.
Yep. Yep. But I mean, she's proven too popular because of people like us. She became too popular to not feature in the X books. So with great fan love comes greater exposure, comes more mediocre stories. Like it's a tale as old as time.
Okay. Another character has been announced to be returning in the Phoenix series. Do you know? Do you
Okay.
know? Do you know who it is?
No, I know nothing about the Phoenix series at this
Okay.
point.
Are you ready for the
I'm
grand, miraculous return of Sarah Gray?
What are her children's names? No.
Galen and Joey.
Is anybody okay? Okay. Yay, I guess. But why are we undoing the iconic Phalanx Covenant? Number
I
one.
agree.
Okay, I was
Agree.
gonna say, and number two,
Agree.
what do stands think of this? Was anybody clamoring for Sarah Gray to come back?
I don't know. The reaction has sort of been muted. A lot of people, like I think like one or two like accounts are like, yes, Sarah Gray's returning, and someone slid into my DMs being like, oh, can you believe it? They remember who Sarah Gray is, and I'm like,
That's fair.
that's fair, A, but B, like she doesn't need to come back. And again, I'm a diehard Gene stan, and even I'm like, this is like a waste of everyone's time here. Like, I guess they're gonna Gene Phoenix is somehow gonna confront the Phalanx in space, and Sarah is revealed to be alive. I don't know.
It just seems really weird.
Yeah.
Like, has Jean when was the last time Jean even was like mournful for her sister? When was the last time Jean even said the name Sarah? Like,
She's like
no,
that heinous bitch. I came back as Dark Phoenix to try to murder them all.
it's literally been 30 years. What are they doing? Nobody
Yeah.
cares. Like, this is the cosmic Jean Grey God Queen story that you're telling. By the way, I will say, I don't read the book. I'm aware of her powers being enhanced and her getting a new uniform. And I actually really like it. Did they? Oh, well, I don't know. Did they wind up actually being blue? Because there were a couple of different
It's black. It's
options.
like a starry sheen. It's like a cosmic black.
Okay. I liked the blue version better, but I like in general, I don't mind a new and different Phoenix look after we usually are stuck with the same one.
I love the
Anyway.
I love the Cosmic Queen look. I'm really excited for Jean's future, but I kind of like also Stephanie, who is a writer for the Phoenix book, accidentally on TikTok was showing her scripts as kind of like a gag, and some eagle-eyed Jean stan zoomed in and saw that
Of
Sarah
course.
Gray was going to return. So it wasn't even a proper surprise. Like if you had your ear to the ground, you knew it was coming.
Yeah, I don't have my ear to the ground, so I would have never seen the return of Sarah Gray coming, but I guess I'm happy for you, question mark. I Yay for Gene. Okay, now you're just being rude. Guys, he's oh no. Oh, okay. So since this is a podcast, not a video, Dayspring is taunting me by holding up the new Marvel Legends Marrow, which he knows I got a ship notice like 6 days ago and haven't had any movement on the package. She's beautiful. I need her. Why? How do you have her before me? This is not right. I'm the one that's supposed to have things early.
First time I got something before you. First fucking time I got something before you.
It would be, is it Amazon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it would be Amazon would be first to get them for the first time ever. Now that I'm taking a moral stand, and I'm finally taking a moral stand against Amazon. This is my penance. This is my punishment for not giving Daddy Bezos my money anymore.
I don't, it's funny. I don't really use Amazon. Like I'm not one of those people who Amazon stuff. I much prefer getting things in person. But I did these Marvel Legends a couple months ago, and I got the shipping notification for this, and then I canceled my Big Bad Toy Store, and that's it. I believe Cyclops and Nightcrawler for me are coming from Big Bad. I
I
believe they're coming from Big
have
Bad.
I have Cyclops, and it's a shame that he's such a great Cyclops figure in like a costume that nobody that's like meh, I mean, maybe I'll make an OG X Factor display once we have all of them, maybe, but like they need to reuse. What I really want is a Dave Cockrum giant size X-Men size like Cyclops with this new power effect.
Oh yeah,
On
that
this
would be
body, it
amazing.
would be lovely. But look at you in your marrow. She's so nice. Is she okay? So on a scale of Fabian Cortez to Husk, where does marrow fall? Or do we
I don't.
save that for our
Let's
official
save
review?
that. Let's save
Okay,
that. I know we disagree on Fabian Cortez.
shocking.
Shocking. I have said that already. I was like, oh, I really love this figure, but I acknowledge this is a personal thing here for me.
No, yeah, and listen, he's not a bad figure by any means. Look at him. He's so lovely. He is a lovely figure. But I just can't, I can't put him above my ladies. I've been waiting so long for Husk. I didn't even want a Fabian Cortez figure until you convinced me that we needed one.
I'm
So,
so happy with him. But we will rank them once we have all of the figures
yeah,
together.
yeah,
We will
yeah.
do like a new section for it. But I think
I
now.
have I have a pre-order arriving soon notice on Nightcrawler. He has not actually shipped, but soon I will have them all. So stay tuned. I have a lot of feels on these figures.
I have so many feels on Nightcrawler, but we will save that. We will save that for a special bonus episode.
Yes, yes, yes. Another detour on our train ride here.
But detour no more because praise White Phoenix. We are officially reviewing and discussing New X-Men Annual 2001, The Man from Room X. And it is written by Grant Morrison and illustrated by Lionel Francis Yu, who, God, oh my God, is he dead?
No,
Why do I keep thinking he's dead?
I don't know. Get your shit together.
Okay, wait, let me do that one more time. By Grant Morrison and Lionel Francis Yu.
So, for anybody who's reading along, I think the first thing you're going to notice about this issue is that it is a horizontal issue, which I can tell you that I read this over the weekend in my omnibus, and that was a pain in the ass, or maybe a pain in the wrist, because my wrist literally hurt afterwards, and it was not an enjoyable reading experience. But this is the first time I've ever, like right now, is the first time I've ever looked at this on an iPad, and this is Bill Jemas was ahead of his time. He invented Marvel Unlimited before there was Marvel Unlimited. This is how it was always meant to be read.
I agree. It's funny, I was looking at the notes on UncannyXmen.net, and they mentioned that this was Marvel's first attempt at a Marvel scope format, and that the format
Okay.
did not prove successful. I did a quick Google on this. I did not see other issues in Marvel scope, nor could I find any information on this initiatives. So one is left to believe that after the printing of this, there was like some kind of reader backlash. I remember because I have the trades, I was like, oh, how am I supposed to read this like this? And it was extremely uncomfortable. And I will say it was even a little bit uncomfortable reading it on Marvel Unlimited.
Really? It's so nice on my iPad here.
Oh well, I watch it. I read it on my phone, so maybe it's a little different. I don't give. Ryan Penagos once told me to stop reading comics on my phone because you
You
need to
have to
let
stop reading comics on your phone. That is
because
not.
you need to let the
No,
art breathe. Yes, I know.
you're
But and
insane. You're insane.
not wild about the format, to be completely honest with you. I appreciate I think it's a unique quality of this annual, and I appreciate that. But I personally am not a fan of it.
No, having read it, I'm used to reading it in collected editions, and I imagine it sucks just as much in a single issue. But on an iPad, not an iPhone, it looks quite nice and feels, dare I say it, slightly ahead of its time, being
Oh, I
formatted
love
this
that.
way.
Well, because I got my Kindle out of like storage. I got a Kindle right before we came down to Miami, and I went to go download the Marvel Unlimited app, and I couldn't figure it out. And then Jeff was like, "Let me try." And you can't download Marvel Unlimited onto the
Yeah,
Kindle.
well, because Amazon owns Comixology, they're not going to
I
allow you to
know.
have a rival.
Listen, I know. I'm just telling you. I didn't know that. That was something I had not considered.
Welcome to capitalism, baby. You're finally here.
I mean, I remember when I was working on the publishing side, there was a lot of discrepancies with apps and Amazon and the Apple Store because of all that. That's how we lost in-app purchasing for Comixology because
Yeah.
Apple was charging Amazon, a fee to go through there. But yeah, I was quite upset about that. So I now have to go buy an iPad. I never owned an iPad except for iPad 1 when it first came out in like 2009.
I had one of those too, and I didn't use it. It was pretty. I was like, oh, I don't need this so much after all. But once I started reading more digital comics, I got me this big. It's basically the only thing I do on it. And I'll watch something on it every now and then. When I'm traveling or in the bathtub or something. But it just looks so nice on here. You have to look at it on an iPad again, and then you'll get it. You'll get it
And I'll get it.
because this is our first taste of an artist who isn't Frank Whiteley on this
Yeah.
title.
I don't know how I feel about that either. Listen, the art is beautiful. I love the art. I think it works really well. But knowing that Quietly will not return for a while, oh, it makes me sad.
I would assume that the annual was always going to be a different artist.
Fair.
That's just typically how annuals go. But it is, yes, it is not quite Frank Whiteley. But I wasn't really familiar with Lionel Francis Yu at the time. I know he drew a lot of Wolverine solo series, which I was never into. And he also, I believe he did some issues of Uncanny and Adjective lists in the Return of Claremont era, but I mean, certainly, those all came out when we had drifted away from the X books. So I wasn't familiar with him the first time I read this. Now, of course, I'm a huge fan. I think his New Avengers, like the New Avengers run leading up to Secret Invasion, is like top tier Marvel art from the modern age. But I mean, he doesn't measure up to Frank Whiteley. I'm sorry, he really doesn't. That's no shade. It's just facts.
It was just groundbreaking at the time. Quietly was groundbreaking. But listen, I think if you can get over the format, understand that this is an annual, holy frack. If you want to understand the Morrison era, what themes and plots Morrison is threading, they put
Yeah.
them all in this issue.
I love all of it. It is everything. It encapsulates everything about what is going to be important about this run. And like you said, it's a critical puzzle piece in Morrison's larger vision for the X-Men, and it encapsulates like so many of the themes that define the entire run of the new X-Men series. Things like mutation is evolution, fear is control, identity being rebellion, and corporate and humanitarian interests in the rapidly changing mutant world. I mean, it is just all here. Every every single seed of what is to come is laid out literally here.
Sublime, Zorn, Scott and Emma, all here, and
All of it.
all of it. I am kind of confused, and let's get into the issue because I am confused about a couple of things. And how it starts off is that there's this like masked prisoner in a cell, and we're told his name is Zorn, and that Zorn has a new master now. And it seems that like the Chinese military has like seized this person, and they turn to someone who's on screen, and it is John Sublime. And we find out that Zorn is being held in something that's called Feng Tu, which is the name of the prison for the last 50 years. And Ao Jun, who is like the head officer overseeing everything, has like two kids. And he makes Zorn take off his mask, and they get incinerated.
Like literally a melted pile of flesh with bones sticking out of it.
That was so graphic. I really want to frame this for readers. The early aughts in a comic book, you don't have children getting incinerated into like a pile of ash and bone.
No. I mean, maybe except in ES4 Extinction, of course.
Oh, well, of course. Well, yeah, fair.
Outside of Morrison.
Yeah. Outside of Morrison. Well, no, also Poptopia. Remember Poptopia? One of those babies also did die. Sorry.
It's true. It's okay. So maybe it's not as rare as you think.
They're killing a lot of babies in the X office during this era. But it's still harrowing. How about that? It's really harrowing.
Yes. And it is a dangerous time to be a child in the Marvel Universe.
So Sublime is like really impressed with his with Zorn's power, and he tells the officer that they have a deal, that he really only needs Zorn's head, but he'll take him off his hands.
Sets up sort of the mystery of Zorn. Like even though the helmet is taken off, the one panel we see of him is just eyes, nostrils, and a mouth. So we have no idea what we know. This guy doesn't have a face. And clearly has no discernible features at this time either. Next, we go to Hong Kong, and, after a bit of playful banter in the closing issues of ES4 Extinction, Emma is now openly flirting with Cyclops, asking him, what's all this I hear about your vow of celibacy? Your poor wife's loss is shared by the world's eligible women, believe me. I love that. I love that Emma, she's starting to outwardly show an interest in Cyclops, which of course becomes a major plot point later. And, Cyclops being Cyclops basically brushes all of that off, outright says that he remembers all the time she tried to kill the X-Men, and he asks her point blank, what are you doing here? Why did you join them? Emma states it's not always about good and evil. She was out of her mind, high on drugs, or drunk. X-Men are just sort of the best place for her right now.
Okay, what's one thing about this scene with Emma that you would note as an Emma stan?
I mean...
She's not wearing white. She's wearing denim and pink.
I was getting there. My God, okay, this is not the only time in this issue that she is not wearing white, which I'll mention it when we get to that in a little bit.
Okay, but she's not wearing. This is a rare occasion where Emma is in a pink top and denim, not wearing white. I love this, by the way, because I really do think when Emma talks about why she's with the X-Men, she's like, well, listen, first of all, I deserve some sympathy for my past because I was so high on drugs. That is such an Emma line to say. But I do like this line too, where she says, your X-Men are currently the only credible alternative to a world where mutants are simply ghettoized, persecuted, and exterminated. I mean, that is some harsh Emma T right there. But Cyclops, I think also in this issue where he's here, I'd be flattered, Emma. There's a lot going on with Cyclops, as we will see later down this issue. But this was such a great opening scene. If you're here for the drama, Morrison, they just planted that little seed for us, and we are gobbling it up.
Absolutely. And I will mention on the subsequent page, Emma's tank top is white. So this may have just been a rare coloring mistake by Hi-Fi Design, who we have praised for their coloring
Listen,
already in this run.
not going to come after Hi-Fi. Listen, if they want to give Emma a pink top, I'm here for it. But yes, I agree with you. This could have been just an editorial mistake.
Yeah, yeah. So the next page, the four members of the X-Men on the boat, Cyclops, Beast, Wolverine, and Emma, have been joined by Domino. They are at the X-Corps office in Hong Kong, sitting around a table, chowing down on some grub, and there's a lot of setup happening at this round table. Just in a few word balloons, Domino discusses how Professor X set up the X-Corps all around the world after he outed himself as a mutant. She lets us know that there's an illegal trade in mutant organs happening, explains how Risque got herself killed while she was investigating it, and she name drops, I want to get it right, Sublime Pharmaceutical Solutions. And there's that name again, Sublime, who was just the shady figure doing testing on XORN before we got here. And I have to give Morrison a lot of credit. They are an absolute master at writing lengthy exposition that doesn't feel heavy-handed. Like, this page is basically an info dump, but it never feels like it's too much.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. It's an info dump in the best way possible. You can tell Morrison they are savoring X-Men history. And they even go back and talk about how during the Atomic Age, mutants were appearing, the Atomic Age mutants, and how the Chinese government was taking a hard stance on Homo superior, and that means that they were being murdered at birth, anyone who had an X gene. It's just, you really are taking this leap with Morrison because so much has happened, so much will continue to happen, and it's exactly what you just said. I'm reiterating exactly what you said. It's all exhibition. We haven't actually seen the X Corps being formed, and we will get more exploration down the line and in Uncanny as well. But this is like the first time we're like, oh shit, I guess now these offices are opening up around the world. And Risque, as Beast notes, died. And how did she die? She died off screen, and that's why the team is here to pay their respects.
I mean, I think she spent most of her existence off screen, but I digress.
Go read X-Force.
Listen, I have.
I'm not saying you. I'm telling the family at home.
So personal.
I think you would know more about Risque than I would. No, Familia, go read X-Force for more information on Risque.
Yeah, it's very worth your time.
But yeah, so Beast poses the question, how did she die? Because she was here investigating something that was going on, and then she was just dead. And it was 2 weeks into a big adventure with her, and she was uncovering evidence of some kind of black market deal that was going on with mutant organs.
Yeah, and she says that she's in over her head, and that's why, she's talking to the X-Men about this. And we close out the scene of them at the table with Emma holding a book called The Third Species by John Sublime and asking what kind of lunatic would attempt to graft mutant organs to human tissue. And when do we meet John Sublime?
Right next! And there he is in front of an adoring public. John Sublime is telling everyone, have you ever felt special? Do you think you're a mutant trapped in a human body? Well, then maybe you're one of the third species, and we are going to help you transcend your body, and we are going to graft mutant parts to you, because mutants are the next stage of human evolution, or the next stage of evolution, and you can become one of John Sublime's U-Men.
Because U is so much cooler sounding than X-Men. Yeah, no.
I love that.
I just reading this in 2025 kind of hits a lot different than it did back then, because I definitely see like more layers to this discussion. It kind of mirrors real world conversations about self-identification, belonging, and identity beyond, the rigid classifications of birth, which as a gender non-conforming person, Morrison certainly understands that. And I think this is a sort of a supervillain allusion to it. Like, this is not a good guy pitch, but I just think it is an interesting subject to be writing about 25 years ago.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not like they have spare mutant parts around the world that they're like, oh, okay, we'll graft this to a human. This is like they're hunting down mutants. This is
Yeah.
not public information. They're hunting down mutants, mutant organs, murdering them, and giving them to humans. And Emma even talks about how that seems to be like an inversion of Xavier's dream. But I think here what's really creepy about Sublime is that Sublime is like a best-selling author. He's mediagenic, and he's the head of this corporation that is promoting Homo perfectus. And
Yeah.
you can be a human. And it's really creepy. And I think Morrison, what they did here was really genius in that there's almost a corporate greed into this. This isn't, to quote Gene, this isn't motivated by altruism. This is about Sublime being selfish and sort of evil. And we know there's much more to Sublime that we will unpack in the issues to come.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this issue is like our clearest look yet at how sort of society perceives and attempts to control those who exist outside of like the norms of things. And again, that's, Sublime being this telegenic media mogul type person, paired with all of these, identity issues is way ahead of the curve. I mean, all of these things are at the forefront of the political conversation happening in the world right now. And 25 years ago, it was fiction in an X-Men comic.
Yeah, and it's funny because there are some dated like references here because Sublime's like, you could be a mutant too if society has accepted tattoos and piercings. Why not accept like I was like, okay. I do think Sublime though, and I'm curious about your take on this because Sublime does mention that we do live in a world where you can clone parts and it's possible to close the gap between man and mutant. I took this as sort of Sublime lying to the public because really the dealings are what's happening on the back end.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know enough about the Sublime Corporation to understand their workflow and stuff like that. But Sublime is up to no good.
Yeah, he's up to no good. And I think any reasonable person would see that he is up to no good. And plus, just he introduces Jan, Biro, and Harriet, who live in these insane suits that they can't take off. They can't breathe the air of this fallen world because they need to be clean. They need to be pure for their mutant grafts to take. And it's like even though there's so much happening on the back end, the stuff that he's willing to show the public is still pretty horrific in its own way.
Shout out to Emma seeing Sublime on screen while she's shopping in China with her sunnies on and Cyclops. I'm assuming that Cyclops behind her and she's holding her bags. And it's right there in the corner. You can't really see it, but shout out to Emma. Our girl is a fashionista always.
Yeah, she's putting a little bit of shopping ahead of getting to the bottom of the illegal mutant organ trade.
And the third species, this is a concept that will not go away when the X-Men franchise. For some of the people who have sent us fun messages, how has Morrison ever influenced the franchise? Well, Jed MacKay's X-Men currently deals with the human and the science of the third species. So go check out Jed MacKay's run. This is a concept that's not going away in the next 25 years.
And thank God for that, I guess, depending on who's writing it.
What happens next? Because I love the next scene.
Okay, so the next scene is Domino and Wolverine on the rooftops among the neon signs. And Domino is clearly, dressed in her spy gear, ready to go on a mission, while Wolverine is dressed in a tuxedo. He's going to infiltrate a fancy party and create a distraction while Domino does her spy thing. And along the way, she brings up the subject of Emma Frost and Scott Summers. And this scene is kind of like another example of Morrison being great with exposition. There's a lot of information here, but it's being delivered by Wolverine, who is not one for words. But I mean, just this brief conversation furthers the subplot of Apocalypse's impact on Cyclops' psyche, which, you know, we've said this many times already in just our 3-issue coverage of this, is that many writers, typically when they come into X-Men, they sweep things aside, clear the decks for new stories. But in New X-Men, it sort of becomes like an integral part of Cyclops' character arc. So, you know, his shifting relationship with Jean Grey, his increasing emotional distance, you know, all of the things that Wolverine is saying very succinctly here are indicative of like the seismic shifts that the character of Cyclops is going to take. And again, this issue, just everything you want about the Morrison run is here, and it just, little things like this help New X-Men feel like an organic evolution of the franchise rather than a total reinvention, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I love what you said, that's a natural evolution, because what Morrison really wanted to do, they did not want to deal with that love triangle, the Scott, Jean, Logan love triangle. So in this scene where Domino's sort of making fun of Scott, Wolverine's like, you know, he's a good guy. And you want that guy in your corner, and this guy is going through a lot right now. And imagine being possessed by Apocalypse. That really changes you. I love that.
Yeah. But it's interesting that it's Wolverine sticking up for Cyclops.
It's deliberate. It's a deliberate message that Morrison is sending the reader. But what I love the most about this is that Domino's like, so Wolverine, what are we doing afterwards? And Wolverine's like, oh, you can pick up on it, can you? She goes, you're buying drinks. And by the way, it's straight up animalistic, no strings attached. And Wolverine's like, oh yeah, I fucking love it. I believe Logan mentions in this issue that Xavier gives all the staff like platinum cards. So they're literally on a work trip, all of them, with Daddy Xavier's Amex. And they're going to fuck each other. Love it. I can't get over it.
I love it, and I think this is the first time we ever saw Domino and Wolverine flirting, or fucking rather, outright saying they're gonna fuck later. And you know, Morrison gives them such great chemistry, which is then carried forward into Kyle and Yost X-Force, which of course led to the X-Force Sex and Violence miniseries, which definitely lived up to that title. Yeah, they just, in the span of 4 panels, Morrison gives us a brand new, interesting character dynamic that we have never had before, while also the page before delivering an insane amount of exposition. Like the balance of these things is just masterful.
So Ao Jun arrives, and that's who they're scouting. And Domino gives the shadiest line, which is like he has the worst mutant gift because it, like his dandruff, his skin flakes, whatever he sheds grows into little beans of him, golems, which I thought was really interesting because when Moira Deering, I don't know what a golem is. I did look it up. You know, it's from Jewish mythology of beings that come into being from clay. However, when Moira dies in House of X, when we see her timeline of her life, a Shi'ar Golem was used as the excuse for how Moira died during years before. But
Interesting.
I'm just saying, again, Morrison influencing the franchise. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I love that line, and they get onto their mission. They get into the elevator shaft.
They make it into Domino makes it to the elevator shaft where Ao Jun is standing with his gross-looking golems, and then Domino gets into the elevator and starts fighting with the golems, and this scene is cool. It is.
It is a cool scene. It really is. Because it's the X-Men just on a mission, taking down a low-level bad guy.
Yeah, and I mean, in style, in Domino's, like, Domino Eye, she apparently has, she's already established a page or two earlier that she has, you know, contacts that have special tricks, and she turns into a one-eyed Cyclops. She starts blasting these golems with her laser eye. They literally fall to sinewy pieces with green slime blood. It's just a really, really cool rendering. And then she makes it into the security suite while Wolverine is out on the floor. And what does Wolverine do? What's going on with Logan?
Well, one of the things that I think is like really interesting for this issue is that Domino is looking at the security footage and she sees that Sublime is giving money to the Chinese government to deal with all the emerging mutants. And so this confirms everything that they've been suspecting. So Domino tells Logan that, hey, this is happening, and someone notices Logan because he is a very well dressed man, and he goes, I'm just a distraction. And he just like kills two golems right there. I'm sorry, it's A.O. Judd who says that. And it is a cool fucking scene. If you're reading it on the iPad, it zooms out and you see him like sticking it to those two golems. I loved it so much.
Yeah, these golems are gruesome when they're getting taken down. They do not they can't take a hit very well. Let's just put it that way. They don't seem to be very sturdy. So
No, again, low level, like bad guys.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So Wolverine starts making his way to Domino, and there's just golems everywhere. It's another really cool fight scene of Wolverine just getting to go loose on these like kind of non-sentient creatures. Domino goes, the Wolverine is coming to get you, woo, which is just a nice little moment of levity amongst all of this insane and gruesome violence. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think it's whereas E is for Extinction kind of didn't show you the violence and the grossness and just let, the trauma of it all really, really sell the story. The violence is all here in this one, and it is out in the open, and it is intense.
Yeah, and that's because, like, I think the more horror of Genosha was not seeing what happened to these innocent people. Here, it's like, smash the bad guys, and it's fun.
It is fun. I mean, it's no mistake that this is happening in a literal widescreen issue. I'm sure the mandate that came down from Jimis for this, because he's the one that insisted on this format. I think every Marvel book that month was released this way.
The Marvel scope.
I've never, yeah. And it didn't work out. So there was probably a little bit of editorial, like, no, you have to make this widescreen action. But either way, it exceeds whatever mandate it may have had, and is just cool.
Okay, but the next page has the best panel. And I know you're dying to talk about this page with Emma in it.
It is the rest of the team. They have been waiting in the parking garage for their signal, and Miss Emma Frost is wearing the black and yellow leather look, and she looks killer in it. It doesn't beat the Dapper Diaper, but it's fun to see her in this stealth X-Men leather jacket team look, even so briefly.
I love it so much. Oh my goodness. I wish that, and I was waiting for it when I was coming back and rereading this, because I remember she wore this once and we'll never see it again, so don't get your hopes up, Familia. But this jacket looks amazing on her. She's wearing the black leather pants as well. Emma for the win with this look.
Yeah, no notes. It's beautiful. What can I say? Emma elevates anything she wears, including the black leather X-Men uniform.
So it's a really interesting scene because they're just waiting downstairs in the parking garage, and Cyclops is trying to make small talk, and he's here like, so, have any of you ever met Risque before? Did any of you meet Risque before? And Emma's like, shh. She's like, don't talk, Scott. But we know that Beast can smell her blood, and this is probably where she had died. and they find out that there is sort of like a little secret entrance here. Cyclops blasts open this like secret entrance, and there's a little caterpillar girl who shouts that the U-Men and John Sublime have all taken her wings, and she's bleeding out a lot.
Yeah, and this is just another sort of grotesque body horror panel for Lionel Yu to go ham on. And I mean, it really sells it really sells it. And you feel really terrible for this girl.
And
Uh
and Beast says, I'm sorry to interrupt you because this was a little line that I think goes to the big theme of this issue, which is Beast says, "Oh, this is a little corner of hell that Dante forgot to write about." Obviously, in reference to Dante's Inferno, which I was obsessed with back in the early aughts, as most literary gay kids were. But I thought that's a little nice touch because the idea and concept of hell in relation to the human and their experiments and the victims, the idea of hell is very present.
and this certainly you can't disagree seeing this poor
Oh,
child crying over her missing wings, which it's
oh,
not on
it's
the next
so.
page, but we do find out where her wings go have gone in this issue. But before we get to that, after this horrible splash with terrible, depressing body horror, we jump right back to the episode of Alias starring Domino and Logan as they are taking a lot of gunfire and do not have a clear exit. So Domino, reminds Logan what her powers are, which she has incredible luck. So they both just blindly run towards a window on the 10th floor. And the next page is a epic splash of Wolverine saying, "It is your lucky night, darling," as they fall into a swimming pool below.
Oh, I love that. Again, such a wonderful use of Domino's powers. It's so great that like a lot of this stuff just happens. Like they were just going to jump in because her power is luck based, they find a pool. But downstairs, the caterpillar girl, Beast is trying to help her. She's losing a lot of blood, and then the human come. And this is an excellent shot of Emma using her powers, her diamond powers for the first time. And she almost like she makes her hands like very claw-like with her diamonds. And she's telling the human, I have diamond skin. These claws are like a drill on your human skull. Oh, so good.
Nasty Auntie Emma is clearly enjoying her new powers, and I like that she's like immediately more of a physical brawler than she's ever been before. She threatens to use her fingernail as a organic diamond drill and just run it through the frail human skull.
Emma is adaptable. This is what I love about Emma Grace Frost. You tell her one morning you're a brute now, and she has the power. She's like, "Darling, that's fabulous," and now she's committed to being a brute. Love it so much. Um, I should note because this is going to come into play in the following scene was that Sublime was handed a pair of keys in that exchange, and those keys
Yes.
are the gateway to Zorn, who's in prison in Feng 2. And so then back at like this beautiful, they must be staying at the Ritz Carlton somewhere in China, the nicest hotel loft in China. The team is all like lounging around. Emma's back in her dapper diaper. Beast is watching Star Wars, and they have the keys and they need someone to read the psychic energy off of them. And Emma's like, I hope you know this is going to take hours upon hours of tedious. And then she grabs the keys and she gets a flash of Zorn's story of how he was born with a star in his head, but people were afraid of him. And so they built a prison around him. And it's a very emotional moment for Emma, and she turns into diamond form, saying that she's not dealing with these emotions anymore. And Wolverine says, so what's Feng 2? And Emma says, it's from mythology. It's the capital city of hell. You can remove your hand from my butt, Wolverine. Such a beautiful.
Which the art does not reflect Wolverine being pervy, I might add.
I agree
But
with you. I agree.
was she just being sassy, or do we think he was actually groping her?
I don't know. I don't think Wolverine would have been pervy, but I think he would have been lifting her up, and I think Emma would have been sassy about it if his hand was a little too close to somewhere. I don't know, but I agree. The art does
Yeah.
not show. The art does. There's no indication that his hand is somewhere where it shouldn't be.
Emma in general in this issue, just she really shines. I mean, it's clear she has no problems navigating the kind of political and economic complexities of this new mutant world that they're living in, and she's not afraid to call things as she sees them. I think it's kind of she said it basically earlier. This is the best option for her, but she's very morally flexible, which doesn't just make her like a compelling part of this particular story, but is also kind of an indicator of where the X-Men in general, the franchise in general, is going to head in the near future after this.
Yeah, and what I also appreciate about these pages with Emma, and I think Emma's the star of this show, so well. Easily. One, her psychometric powers. That was something that Adrian Frost, her sister, had. But I guess, listen, she's a psychic. She can hold on an object for, she says it, long period. It's going to take a lot of hours, but in this case, it didn't. So she can tap into that kind of. But secondly, what I thought was absolutely so well done was that she turns into diamond form so she doesn't feel her emotions. So that's how, there's nothing but a cold heart and a scandalizing wit. That's it. That is a theme that if you're paying attention to Emma throughout the next 2 decades, when things get too emotional for Emma, she turns into a diamond.
And I think that this is the first time that it establishes that she has no telepathy and no empathy in her diamond form. I could be wrong.
No, this is 100% like the first time it's ever established because the previous 3 issues did not say that. So this is the only time, not the only time, but this is one of the rules that's set that when Emma is in her diamond form, she's blocked out from her telepathy.
No compassion, just a cruel sense of humor and a cold, hard heart.
I love it. So good. And
then
but
we'd be remiss if we didn't say that after all these fabulous Emma panels, we get a small one of Beast letting us know that the girl died on the operating table because she lost too much blood. So ending that on a sad note.
R.I.P. Caterpillar Girl. We miss you. I hope you were resurrected on Krakoa or at least in the White Hot Room.
Please.
So, what happens next? These are 2 big pages. By the way, can I just note that Emma so far, every page has had a different outfit.
Which is correct for Emma Frost.
Emma Frost, even the pink outfit, we can disagree if it was pink or white, whatever it was supposed to be, still different outfit every page.
Fashionista Emma, we love you so fucking much. The next page is a very shirtless and very sexy Cyclops lounging on his bed, having a telepathic conversation with Jean, who is manifested as this really cool, like pink, fiery bust kind of situation happening. She's asking who's Zorn, what's going on, and Cyclops tells her, download the whole thing from my memory. I don't want to talk about it. We've uncovered something really nasty here. And then asks, is Emma behaving herself? She's on your mind. And, Cyclops quickly just says, Emma, I'm keeping my good eye on all of them, really kind of not answering the specific question. And he's like, okay, I'm tired. We're heading to China, have a big day tomorrow. Good night, love you. And just like, that's that. Rolls over and goes to sleep when suddenly the door opens. Cyclops grabs his glasses, doesn't even have time to ask who's there before we see Ms. Emma Frost once again in a new outfit, this time a slinky black dress, holding a bottle of champagne and 2 champagne glasses, asking Cyclops to tell her more about the world of chastity.
When Emma flirted with Cyclops in that initial opening page and he played it off like super cool, like, oh, you try to kill us, like whatever. He's been thinking about her.
Oh yeah.
He was beyond flattered. He said I would be flattered. Oh, he is fucking flattered.
Oh, he
He
was.
he wants to hook up with Emma so badly. The second thing is Emma got Zorn's backstory, was so completely emotionally distraught from it that she just wanted to be decadent and indulge in a vice. And she got her champagne and she put on a sexy black lingerie and was like, tell me about celibacy. That's it. The scene cuts there. We do not know what happens between them in this issue in particular. I love it.
But I mean, can you blame Emma for barging in on shirtless Scott in his boxers? He looks good.
I listen. I Cyclops. You know I love my Cyclops. I would be too. I can't believe it took her the entire day. I would have done it right there on the boat with Cyclops.
Right? I would have done it in the fitting room when we were on our little shopping spree. It
Done
would
it
have,
at
it would have
lunch.
happened. But the fact that she still has the gumption to do this after the day they've had and the day they're going to have, just shows, there's a side to Emma who, while she takes it all very seriously, she doesn't let it get to her. Probably does affect her, of course. We know she's a very nuanced, layered character, but unlike, a lot of the X-Men, she's kind of able to pick herself up, dust herself off, and carry on with her life a little bit better.
Yeah, she can process that pain a little bit more. And again, she uses humor, she uses vices to mask her real feelings because Emma's a deeply caring person. And again, this is why I think the Cyclops Emma romance is in fact earned during this run. I believe these two characters would hook up. They have a lot in common. Cyclops is feeling too much because he's going through everything that's happening in his mind because of Apocalypse. Like, what did Wolverine say earlier? He was here like, if he farts, only a dog could hear it. That's how wound tight Cyclops is. And here's Emma in her black dress with a bottle of champagne, ready to have a good time. These characters need each other. I'm rooting for these
Absolutely.
characters. I'm rooting for these characters to be together. So then our next scene is the Thing 2 prison, and John Sublime is there. His men have arrived. We find out what happened to the caterpillar mutants' wings. They're on the body of this. Is it John Sublime or U-Man?
I believe it's Sublime
It's Sublime.
himself.
Wow, it's so funny. I thought it was just a random human. No, it is Sublime. Sublime has the caterpillar mutants' wings. And he's talking about how mutants are one day going to inherit the earth, that he wants to create a new generation of mutants. We do get a little bit more backlog on Zorn, but it's stuff that Emma already established. Morrison's just reiterating the point that in 1969, the prison was built around him, and that he's a really powerful mutant. And then the X-Men barge in.
Yeah. They look for the key, but instead they find a note that says, "We are the X-Men." Boo! And at that exact moment, the X-Jet launches at least 4 missiles at the facility and make a grand entrance. And Wolverine actually asks, "So we're allowed to do stuff like this now?" And Cyclops answer, "We just did, Logan. Let's see who complains." And that sets up a dynamic between those two characters that is going to be where Wolverine is questioning, the actions of Cyclops. That obviously plays out in a major way in stories to come, not even written by Morrison.
Listen, this is badass Cyclops. When people are like, "Oh, Cyclops is the worst," I'm like, read Morrison all the way through Avengers versus X-Men. You have such a beautiful character arc for Cyclops, and technically it starts with the search for Cyclops, but it starts with Morrison. It really starts, the direction is Morrison's New X-Men.
Nobody was getting introspective on what being possessed by Apocalypse would have done to somebody like Cyclops. Even if another writer wrote that story, the aftermath is what makes it important, and that would not have happened without Grant Morrison.
So Sublime gets angry at Ao Jun, just being like, "You betrayed me after everything," and he goes, "That's right. Last night I fulfilled all my fantasies. Today I die happy. Beijing dies with me, and all the world dies with me." And what he's referring to is now that Zorn's helmet is off, and Zorn is a star for a brain, and it's going to be a black hole, and it's going to swallow up the entire, at least all of mainland China.
Sublime has one of the human break Aojun's neck, so
Oh yeah, this is
Sublime
true.
says, feed him to Zorn next, and next is the X-Men busting in on Zorn, whose power is starting to swell out of control. One of the human tells Cyclops that they think it's an event horizon, the point at which nothing can escape the gravity of his brain. Emma says, there's nothing where his thought should be, ideas, identity sucked into the emptiness. And Emma and Scott decide to have a conversation with him. Emma downloads Chinese into Scott's brain so that he can speak to Zorn. And basically, I mean, if you want it in a nutshell, he just asked him, "Join us, come with us. Here are the keys to your helmet. You're in control of your destiny now."
Yeah. It's very lovely because he says basically this is very Sailor Moon in that the power of love saves the day. Cyclops, who is having the biggest identity crisis, goes up to Zorn and is like, "Listen, your old life is gone, but you live in a world that your powers should have been appreciated more. You should have been able to make heaven on earth." I think Zorn is the one who says that, but his powers could have done so much for humankind. And Zorn and him finally reach an agreement, and Cyclops looks at Emma and Wolverine and is like, "He's just accepted my offer to join the X-Men." And that's where we kind of leave off in this issue.
I do want to say that Zorn has a really good line that I like here, which is, "I could have built heaven on earth if only they'd let me. I could have laid the foundation stones of paradise here on earth." And damn, I feel like that is such a powerful condemnation of the familiar. They fear what they do not understand, which of course so often drives the conflict of the X books. Because like in many cases, I hate to say it, when you can understand why humanity hates and fears the X-Men. There's a group called the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Literally, it's right there on the label. They're out there to terrorize you. But I don't know. Here, that fear feels sort of hollow, because this isn't about self-preservation. This isn't about annihilation at the hands of the next big mutant bad guy. This is kind of the rejection of salvation. What happens when a mutant isn't a weapon, but they're a healer. And I think it makes you really think about the man versus mutant metaphors that have been running through the X books since they began. Like, what does this say about humanity, and who is the real threat here?
I agree, and it also reminds me of that scene in Avengers versus X-Men where Cyclops says, "I wanted to create a world where mutants use their powers to do something other than fighting robots." I mean, that is such a
Yeah.
beautiful line. And you see that here with Zorn. You're very sympathetic towards Zorn.
Yeah.
But as we know, there's a lot more going on here because Morrison, they are quite clever. They have, as we are reading this for the first time in 2001, we are on Zorn's side. Zorn is a good guy. He's falsely imprisoned. He is a Buddha. He could have created paradise. Zorn, nothing, no red flags with Zorn. Zorn is just
Yeah.
a saint, Saint Zorn. That is our
Yeah.
mindset back when this was published.
And I love how Morrison plays with the reader's expectations. They use like these familiar X-Men tropes, like a tragic new mutant and oppressive human captors and a noble X-Men to the rescue storyline that then winds up later just being completely turned on their head. But yeah, like you said, here reading this for the first time, you would never question it. It is
Never.
that just is what makes reading this again while knowing what comes later just so much more fun.
So, final thoughts on this issue.
One of the most vital chapters in the Morrison run, and where the X-Men are going to continue going after Morrison's run concludes. This is, if even more, I think, than E is for Extinction. I think this issue foreshadows more of the X-Men's future than anything else.
Yeah, that's I don't want to say, I don't want to describe E is for Extinction like this. It's not, this issue is not as fun as E is for Extinction.
No,
not that it's
no.
a fun, but like a lot happens in E is for Extinction. A lot of plots. You have the main cast there. It is, but this annual, really, and annuals are typically throwaways in the past. You don't have to read an annual. You're like, okay, whatever. It was a one-off story. And here, exactly what you said, one-off story about a new mutant. However, Morrison, they are so clever, planting so many seeds here. This is like the bleeding heart of the Morrison run. It all began here. This is what you need to be paying attention to. There are also plots in New X-Men 113 through 116 that, or 114 through 116, whatever the issues are, that a lot is happening there. So Morrison has laid their foundation of the house they are building.
And it's only going to get crazier and more complex and more exciting from here.
Okay, well, thank you for reading New X-Men Annual #1 with us, Familia. We will pick up with New X-Men issue 117, which is directly after E is for Extinction and follows the main cast. Follow us along. Our next episode drop, which will be in the next couple of days, is going to be Joe Casey, our interview with Joe Casey. We just want that out there.
Yeah, you guys are going to love that interview. We talked so much about just what it was like being in the X office at that time, what it was like working with Morrison, developing these ideas, carving out a unique path in the X office. It's a lot of fun. You're going to really enjoy it.
It's a great interview. Yeah,
it's a great interview, but we're not going to let anything else distract us from covering these Morrison issues. I do have an outstanding trivia assignment, which I have not selected just yet, so we will be focusing on that. I think I'll make it a single issue rather than a whole arc, so that we can just quickly discuss it before a Morrison episode, because we know you guys are hungry for more Morrison.
Oh, but I gotta tell you, that the 4-issue Iceman series with Hammy, that was so much fun. Hammy raising his 2 dads, that was the energy of that episode. I had so much fun, but we'll keep it focused on Morrison for at least the foreseeable future. We'll do our best for it. But yeah, so look out for Joe Casey. We also do have an interview with Sarah Ballantyne, the voice of Mary Jane, with Michelle, that I'll release as bonus as well. And yeah, more to come, Familia.
We're just going to keep doing our thing.
You can hit me up on Instagram at Power of X-Men.
I am on Instagram at Flinkman.
And we will see you guys later.